Well, lovely to see you, Darren. Thank you for your time, mate. We're here to talk about the song which was originally called The Best, which to me wasn't the best title. It should have been simply The Best. And so it was nice of me to realize that when Tina and Jimmy Barnes did the duet together, that they actually did call it simply The Best.
I'm in two minds about whether to title it The Best or simply The Best. As a songwriter, they're still going to get paid the same amount of money, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And look, I've got a challenge for both of us. See if we can meet it, that we won't do any simply the best puns like, mate, you are simply the. So let's see.
Like, you are simply the best drummer on Sing It Live this week.
I call you when I need you. My heart's on fire. Will you come to me wild and wild?
I initially didn't know that Bonnie Tyler was the original artist of this song. I mean, the reason why we did it is because, of course, Tina Turner and the way that Zkye does Tina, but especially because Jimmy Barnes was involved in the duet version of this. Jimmy Barnes, our rocking guy here in Australia. So it's the only one that you can find that's like the original Tina record, but it's got this guy belting out all the notes right next to her, and it ended up on Jimmy's album. So it's a Tina Turner song, duet with Tina on Jimmy's album. And I'm like, mind's blown, going, how did he pull that off?
Magic.
The first time that I ever heard this song was watching Video Hits or Smash Hits or whatever it was called back in the day,
Yeah.
where it would be the top 40 counting down and you just see clip after clip. When I heard the Tina Turner version,
Yeah.
which was just her, I was like, well, where's the guy? So the
Yes.
first one that I'd heard ever was the duet.
That's us here in Australia. For those who would watch this conversation from America, would be going like, who's Jimmy Barnes? But I think Jimmy's probably had a massive popularity over there as well after Cold Chisel broke up and he went out on his own. That was really where he had a lot of hits, Working Class Man and Driving Wheels and stuff like that. That was American hits. And I don't doubt that that was probably the time when he would have been on Tina's radar as well, because who can match Tina's fire? Then, there's not many people who can. So remember, she did duets with Bryan Adams. He's a bit of a rock singer, but even not quite as a punching, belting rock singer that Jimmy Barnes is as well. So in our crew, of course, Shaun was the first guy, so... And they're both tall. In the video, of course, poor Jan looks like a midget next to these two, He's still having a great time, Jan, and he's smiling and looking up at the two tall people banging out the song. I should have, in hindsight, maybe brought Jan forward and pushed them back a little bit, hey?
Could have given him a Tom Cruise block to stand on.
Oh, look, you've got a lot of cameras in the room, so if someone stands on a crate, you're going to see that from one of the angles.
Yeah.
And they'll never live it down, so neither will I.
Give me a lifetime of promises, a world of dreams. Speak a language of love like you know what it means.
So what made you come up with this song initially, and how did it get a nod into the recording schedule?
It was trying to find a song that I could pair Zkye and Shaun with. And knowing their vocal capabilities, it had to be something massive. Zkye had already done a fantastic version of If I Could Turn Back Time. And this song, Simply the Best, is just such a massive smash hit through Australia and America. So I think it was a no-brainer that this song would be the very first on the list as far as duets with Zkye and Shaun.
And it's nice that the original isn't a duet, so we're, in a way, putting a little spin on that.
Look, a hit is a hit. If you write a song and it can be split as a duet or change genres and work, then that's a hit song, right? This is why songs are split, as far as royalties go, are split into melody and lyric. And some people don't understand why. It's got nothing to do with the chords of music and rhythm and stuff. It's only those two elements that make up the intellectual property of, you know, the song is the words and the notes the words are singing, because really that is all the song is when it's broken down. So this is a massive hit. Look, it doesn't have that many chords. It's in a very easy key. It's in the key of F and modulates to G. Well, this particular version of the song too, because you could definitely do this in country or a ballad or anything. So it's a steady tempo. I think it was about 104, 105 beats a minute. So, oh yeah, when I need you, heart's on fire. It's a good way to deliver the lyric at that tempo as well. Adding a little bit of groove, still being able to have a good chug on the guitar. So it worked that tempo. Look, the song itself has a lot of gaps in it as well. After mixing the song, I was scratching my head going, how do I fill in the energy? Because it's quite slow for a rock song. And there's all of those gaps between simply the best, all this time here, better than, you know, so there's so much in between, even in the lyrics. So they've got that little ascending line that the guitar plays, that Jan plays, and the keyboard follows with that bell sound. The keyboards are a complicated patch, piano banging along eights with the bass on the bottom, bum, 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 and that has to keep going. And then in the middle, you have a layer of pad sounds and the piano to thicken it out. And then the top notes only are separated with multiple string and bell sounds that help that top end sparkle for those hooks in between the lyrics. It's a complicated recipe to make sure the song keeps the pressure up inside those gaps of the lyrics. So that was a challenge on this.
Simply the best, better than all the rest, better than anyone I've ever met.
Wait till you hear the snare sound, right? It's massive. So the snare had to be so massive and thick as well, and just have, you know, and you've got a lovely consistent way of hitting that had just the right sort of whack. I mean, this custom maple kit is just fantastic, right? I mean, you played it that day and you see what I mean. The solid sound of that Yamaha kit is just, it's pretty unbeatable.
So is that Mario's kit?
Yes.
Yeah, and so he leads
One of his many.
Yeah, I know. He's probably, you know, to say he's a hoarder is an understatement, isn't it? But how good, because any drum situation that he finds himself in, and his son Michael, they've got the right kit for it. So he leaves that there so that then he doesn't need to keep setting it up and packing it down.
That's right. And he has many, many kits. So we have been talking a lot about changing it over. I love the sound of it. And so it is easy for me as well, because there's a kit already mic'd up and you just add the cymbals and hats and you're ready to go. It also worked with Mark Meyer when he came in to play a couple of tracks with us recently as well, and he loved the feel of it and the sound of it. So I'm very happy. It's a great kit.
Yeah, cool. So speaking of drummers, thanks for the Guernsey on this one. What was the deal with that? Were they off on holiday or something like that, the usual guys?
Yeah, they were off on a holiday, a family vacation. So I knew that there was going to be an opportunity for you to drum. Shaun also plays drums. So Shaun's on my drumming list as well. We'll probably see him drumming soon, and everyone's going to love that as well. So it wasn't like a Steve Gadd track or anything like that, but you did a great job. I'm very, very impressed, mate. Fantastic. I mean, of course, the first time I met you was a session drummer on an album that one of my clients was doing, right? You know, and then you ended up playing guitars and bass and everything on that record. So we're back at where we started here, Crafty. You and I, you're the drummer again.
Like, my story as a human being that likes music is that I took piano lessons for a couple of years, and then I thought, no, I really want to play guitar. So I did guitar for a long time in my, you know, like music schooling.
Yes.
But at some point I really, really fell in love with the drums. I remember going to see a Steve Vai concert, and I couldn't keep my eyes off of Mike Mangini on drums for the whole gig. So I walked away from the gig thinking, wait a minute, I watched the drummer the whole time. Oh, maybe I should buy a drum kit. So I
Well, hey, mate, he could have been a good-looking guy, and I'm not going to judge you or anything.
So yeah, it was definitely like his skills were so good. He was doing things where he'd be playing a beat like this, but then all of a sudden he'd just swap, and then he didn't have a double pedal. He had two kicks, so I could see by watching him really closely that he was just swapping his legs as well. He also had an auxiliary hi-hat on this side, so he'd be doing that, but then he'd be swapping legs, and I just thought, how do you do that? So I got fascinated by drums and that primal connection to me man, me hit drum. And so then from there, even though I had more training and more experience sort of playing from my music study doing guitar, managed to bizarrely meet a touring band from the Northern Territory up in Darwin, and they needed a drummer. So rather than put them onto my mates, I just said, oh, well, if you're really desperate, I could do it, because I had a kit. And so that's really where I got my proper start. And bizarrely, I did more touring around the country as a drummer. Yeah, than guitar, at that point at least anyway. So
But did you have a van?
I did.
So that sort of does explain things.
I mean,
for those at home watching, if you have a van, you're pretty well in the band. They'll be going like, we need some band members to fill the gaps and stuff. And you go, I've got a van. And you go, you're in. You go, well, what do you want me to play? And you go, I don't care. Well, you're in.
Yeah, that's definitely right. My van acquisition came actually a bit later. So they were actually after some drummer personnel. Yeah, but you're right, that is handy. I also own a PA, so you've used that for me at least one occasion.
I always had a van and a PA, and I was the same sort of the sound nerd, and I do all of these other jobs and setup, and so I did find myself in different bands, and maybe I was pretty crap, but I had a van.
Yeah,
but here we are, right? Here we are entertaining the world. I'm very happy with the journey.
Totally. And like being in that position where they asked me like, oh, do I know any drummers? And I just said, oh, well, I've got a kit. If you're really desperate, I could do something. Like, it threw me in the deep end, and I had some pretty hairy yuck moments, but then I just pushed through, and then I became all the better for it. So I'm glad that I did that, so that then it could lead me to other things, like, for instance, you saying, hey, do you want to play drums on this track?
How many drum kits do you own now?
I own 3 acoustic kits and 1 Roland TD20 electronic kit.
So 4 kits, that's still a fairly, dedicated player still.
Sorry, 4. I forgot. I've got a cocktail kit as well. So that's...
That's a lot. I've had a lot of keyboards, and these days, because I can't store a lot of them, I still find sticking to 1 or maybe 2. And I suppose I still have a piano and stuff as well. But let's not tell everyone the number of drum kits that Mario has, because in case his wife doesn't know, we don't want to get him in trouble. Sorry if you're watching, Mrs. Marina, but you know what I mean. There's so many drum kits, and when you find yourself renovating the back shed, and she thinks it's for when her mother gets older, and she's going to move in with you, and you're making it very large, and it's got air conditioning and facilities, and it ends up to be a drum kit storage unit.
And yeah, like interestingly, later that night that we recorded, I had a gig with a band called You Sing, which I play drums in for about half the night, and we do play Simply the Best. Yeah, and that's been a really good practice for me to just get used to playing with a click, because that particular band has the lyrics on the screen behind us so everybody can come and sing along, and so we have to stay in time with the lyrics on the screen, or else show is very messy. So being able to have that as a regular practice, it's great playing with a click. I know that Dave Grohl said to Butch Vig years later, after Butch Vig asked Dave in the Nevermind album recording session, can you play with a click for, it was one song Lithium,
Yes.
he told him years later that he broke his heart asking him to play with a click. But I
Yeah.
think that it's great because, you know, for me, I don't have the skills of Dave Grohl, and so I have a tendency to just maybe just nudge a bit forward or nudge a bit back. So just having that click there as a bit of a security blanket to just know, oh, am I there? Or am I there? Oh, like oh, there it is again.
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's
Look, playing with a click there's a bunch of different reasons to play with a click. In our situation here on Sing It Live, I think the number one reason is the original tempo was carefully thought out. And say in the 70s, you'd find a lot of songs slightly off key because they slowed down or sped up the tape because they weren't happy with tempo a lot of the time. So you know, we use a click these days to lock into that original speed, because I do have a lot of comments before we use clicks where people would comment saying it's slightly faster or slightly slower. It doesn't feel right to me. And putting people into that moment where they feel comfortable with the way the songs are presented. Oh, okay, I feel like I'm back in 1982 or whatever, right? This is the song where it feels like their mind remembers that tempo. And we always, well, you know, I always find out what the original tempo is. Sometimes it does fluctuate, and I get at least the average, and pump it through to the drums stereo ears. So that's important. I mean, keeping time as well. It allows me to grab a note. Maybe a singer squeaks on one big note or something, but the take is perfect. Every other take, the singer sang that note great, but there's one thing they go, it allows me to grab a word from another take that's in the same tempo and pop it in there to fix the whole thing. So, I mean, that's the extent of where we're going, is that sort of skin grafting, a couple of tiny little elements if needed. And look, that has really saved us in the past. But if you're changing tempo all the time, or you're recording at different tempos, that's impossible. And you know what, we all rock up at 10:30 here. By midday, we're eating food, and that one's done. Half-hour run through, or 45 run through, 45 filming, right? And we're done. And then we eat, and then we do another one. And that's with a room reset. Sometimes people swapping around and me changing the lights and stuff. So we're sort of in it to get these done. And look, we're at levels of musicianship to be able to pull this off in this amount of time. And it's working out so far. People are pleased with what we're doing. I'm having a great time. You're loving this, yeah?
It's a lot of fun. When people ask me about, you know, like, what is the process like? All of the potential stressful last minute preparation, they go by the wayside when I'm there in the room and my brain is so stimulated with just doing my job, but also being around all of these lovely people that happen to be all guns. So
yeah,
it's a great situation.
It's the real kid as well in the room. So even though we're using in-ears, you really feel the drums in your torso when you're playing it, and it's right there. This is why I've been shying away from using electronic kits. Electronic drum kit would be able to, I could match up the sound straight away, it'd be really simple for me to mix, right? But no one in the room would feel or hear it the same. And I just don't think that in this room we can do the same energy and everyone perform exactly the same if we have an electronic kit. It's the hardest thing in here to create a sound that sounds like a record, right? Because of the real kit. It's the hardest thing, but it's the actual element that makes it work, makes us perform the way we are. Like, I know you're playing next to other guys who are playing, but it's the feel. It's that stimulation, sonic, physical stimulation of your body where the toms and snare are cracking through your torso, you know? I think that's a huge part of it.
Maybe there's a future Devo or Robert Palmer or something song where we could use a Simmons or some electronic thing.
Oh, look, I think having pads and triggers, you can always put triggers on drums, and having one little set of pads that we can do some stuff, that's on my radar. I reckon that we'll add something like that soon, so that will allow us to be able to do percussion loops and add those little things in that are essential. But a lot of the times I can just trigger that instrument, from a drum that's been hit at the same time. In this song here, there are tambourines that are matched up with the snare, and I've just triggered them from the snare. So every second one in the verses, and then the pre-chorus and the chorus are triggering a tambourine as part of that snare sound. And it really makes that particular rock sound, snare sound, really pop. Long reverbed tambourine layered on there. It's just crazy good. There's a lot of people in the room, and for me to grab one more person just to hit a tambourine like that is, to me, superfluous.
Maybe Zoran could multitask.
Yeah, camera guys should be working harder, I think. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking at all those sexy people through the lenses, no, Zoran, I'm just joking, man. You do a great job.
Definitely does. So thank you, Darren, for your time. That was fun. I got to say that the simplicity of just talking to another human being, is the best.
Oh, very funny. Now tell the one that doesn't suck.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to Sing It Live. It's where you get the notifications that all of your favorite songs that haven't even been released yet will be released. And Crafty Music Tips has a bunch of different music tips related videos on this channel, with a stack of these behind the scenes, behind the sound Sing It Live videos, sometimes chatting with Darren, sometimes some of the others, sometimes me just nerding out.
I'll see you next time.
Excellent. No worries. Rock on.
See you later.